When HOA President Karen Mitchell attacked 5-year-old Lily with a baseball bat for riding her tricycle, one mother's hidden camera captured everything. What started as neighborhood bullying became a viral video that exposed years of tyranny, theft, and corruption. Sometimes the smallest victims inspire the biggest revolutions. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. It was a sunny Saturday morning in Maple Grove. The sun was shining bright and birds were singing in the trees. Children were playing outside, their happy voices filling the air. The neighborhood looked perfect with its clean houses, green lawns, and white fences. My name is Sarah, and I was watching my 5-year-old daughter Lily from the kitchen window. She was riding her small tricycle on the sidewalk. Her little legs were moving fast and she was giggling with joy. She had big brown eyes and curly hair that bounced when she moved. Watching her play made me smile. Life felt good. I was drinking my morning coffee, feeling happy and peaceful. The warm sun came through the window, and I could smell the flowers from my garden. Everything seemed perfect in our little world. But I didn't know that this peaceful morning would soon turn into a nightmare. Our neighborhood had one big problem. Her name was Karen Mitchell. Everyone knew her and everyone feared her. She was the head of our homeowners association, or HOA. Karen was about 55 years old, with gray hair always pulled back tight and cold blue eyes that seemed to look for trouble everywhere. Karen walked around the neighborhood every day with her clipboard and rulebook. She was always looking for something wrong. If your grass was too long, she would give you a fine. If you parked your car in the wrong spot, she would threaten to have it towed. If your mailbox was dirty, she would leave angry notes. She made life hard for everyone. Mrs. Johnson got fined because her roses weren't the right color. Mr. Peterson had to repaint his fence 3 times because Karen said it wasn't the right shade of white. The Williams family got in trouble because their kids drew with chalk on the sidewalk. I had my own problems with Karen. Last month, she yelled at me for planting tulips in my front yard instead of roses. She waved her rulebook at me and screamed that I was breaking the HOA rules. I didn't argue with her. I just wanted to keep the peace for Lily's sake. Most people in the neighborhood tried to avoid Karen. When they saw her coming, they would go inside their houses or walk the other way. She made everyone nervous and scared. But Karen thought she was doing the right thing. She believed that rules were the most important thing in the world. She didn't care if she made people unhappy. She only cared about her precious rules. That Saturday morning, I noticed Karen walking around earlier than usual. She was wearing her usual outfit, a white blouse, dark pants, and comfortable shoes for walking. She carried her clipboard and had a serious look on her face. I watched her through the window as she walked down the street. She stopped at the Hendersons' house and wrote something on her clipboard. Then she walked to the Martinez family's house and shook her head at their garden. Something felt different about Karen that day. She seemed angrier than usual. Her movements were sharp and quick. She kept looking around like she was hunting for something. I saw her stop and look at the children playing outside. Her face got that familiar angry expression. My heart started to beat faster. I had a bad feeling about this. Lily was still riding her tricycle, completely unaware of any danger. She was in her own happy world, humming a little song and enjoying the sunshine. She had no idea that Karen was watching her. I put down my coffee cup and moved closer to the window. Something told me to be ready. My mother's instinct was telling me that trouble was coming. Karen walked straight toward where Lily was playing. My daughter was riding her tricycle in small circles on the sidewalk, not bothering anyone. The sidewalk was wide and she wasn't blocking anyone's path. But Karen's face was twisted with anger. She looked like she had found exactly what she was looking for, a reason to cause trouble. I grabbed my phone quickly. Something told me I might need proof of whatever was about to happen. My hands were shaking as I turned on the camera and pointed it through the window. "Little girl." Karen's voice was sharp and mean. It cut through the peaceful morning air like a knife. Lily stopped pedaling her tricycle. She looked up at Karen with confusion in her big brown eyes. My daughter was always polite and respectful to adults, just like I had taught her. "You're not supposed to ride that thing here," Karen shouted. "It's against the rules. Sidewalks are for walking, not for toys." Lily's face fell. She looked sad and scared. "I'm sorry," she said in her tiny voice. She started to get off her tricycle, but Karen wasn't finished. Karen stepped closer to my daughter. She was much taller than Lily, and she used her height to intimidate my little girl. "You kids never listen," she yelled. "I've told your mother 100 times to keep you in line." I felt my blood boiling with anger, but I kept recording. I knew this video might be important. Lily wasn't doing anything wrong. She was just playing like any normal child should be able to do. What happened next changed everything. There was a baseball bat leaning against a nearby tree. Some older kids had been playing baseball earlier and had left it there. Karen saw the bat and picked it up. She held the bat in the air and waved it at my daughter. "If you don't move that tricycle right now, I'll make you," she screamed. Lily froze with fear. Her eyes went wide and she started to shake. She was only 5 years old, too young to understand why this adult was so angry at her. I wanted to run outside, but I kept recording. I knew I needed proof of what was happening. Then Karen did something that will haunt me forever. She swung the bat at my daughter's legs. It wasn't the hardest swing, but it was hard enough to hurt a small child. The sound was terrible, a dull thud as the bat hit Lily's legs. My daughter cried out in pain and fell off her tricycle. She hit the ground and started crying, holding her legs where the bat had struck her. Karen stood there with the bat in her hands, looking satisfied. She had a cruel smile on her face, like she had just solved a problem. I dropped my phone and ran outside as fast as I could. My heart was pounding and I was shaking with rage. "Lily!" I screamed as I ran to my daughter. I scooped her up in my arms. I could see red marks on her legs that were already starting to turn into bruises. Lily was sobbing and clinging to me. "Mommy, it hurts," she cried. "Why did that lady hit me?" I turned to face Karen, my voice shaking with anger. "What is wrong with you? She's just a child." Karen didn't look sorry at all. She didn't even look concerned. "She was breaking the rules," she said coldly. "Maybe now she'll learn to follow them." I wanted to grab that bat and show Karen what it felt like to be hit. But Lily needed me. I carried my crying daughter inside, my mind racing. I had the whole thing on video. Karen wasn't going to get away with this. Inside our house, I sat Lily on the couch and carefully looked at her legs. The bruises were small but real. She winced when I touched them and my heart broke seeing her in pain. "Why did that lady hit me, Mommy?" Lily asked, her voice trembling. Tears were still running down her cheeks. I hugged her tightly, fighting back my own tears. "She's a very mean person, sweetheart. But I promise you she will never hurt you again." I got ice packs from the freezer and gently placed them on Lily's bruises. I also gave her favorite stuffed bunny to hold. Gradually she stopped crying, but I could see the fear in her eyes. While Lily rested, I went back to get my phone. The video was still there, clear evidence of what Karen had done. I watched it again and it made me sick. You could see everything. Karen yelling at Lily, picking up the bat, threatening her, and then hitting her legs. The video was a little shaky because my hands were trembling, but it captured everything perfectly. It even showed Karen's satisfied expression after she hit my daughter. I saved multiple copies of the video on my phone, my computer, and uploaded it to cloud storage. I knew I would need this evidence. My first thought was to call the police. But I also wanted everyone in the neighborhood to know what kind of person Karen really was. She had been terrorizing all of us for too long. It was time for justice. I called 911 and told them what happened. 2 police officers came to our house about 30 minutes later. They were professional and polite, but I could tell they didn't think this was a serious crime. I showed them the video on my phone. They watched it carefully and asked me questions about what happened. They also talked to Lily, who was still scared, but told them the truth about what Karen did. "We'll investigate this," one officer said. "But I have to be honest, this is considered a minor incident. No bones were broken and the injuries aren't serious." I was furious but tried to stay calm. "Minor incident?" I said. "A grown woman hit my 5-year-old daughter with a baseball bat. How is that minor?" The officers said they would file a report and talk to Karen. They took pictures of Lily's bruises and made notes about everything. But I could tell they didn't think much would come of it. After they left, I felt frustrated and angry. The police didn't seem to understand how serious this was. Karen had attacked my child and they were treating it like it was no big deal. I decided that the police weren't enough. I was going to make sure everyone knew what Karen had done. That night I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I could hear Lily's cries and see Karen's cruel smile. I kept thinking about how confident Karen looked, like she knew nothing would happen to her. I decided to post the video online. Our neighborhood had a social media group where people shared news and information. I uploaded the video with a simple message: "This is what our HOA president did to my 5-year-old daughter today." I didn't mention Karen's name directly, but everyone in the neighborhood knew who she was. I posted it at midnight and went to bed hoping someone would see it. When I woke up the next morning, my phone was buzzing with notifications. The post had hundreds of comments and shares. People were outraged. "I can't believe she did this to a child," wrote Mrs. Carter. "This is abuse," said Mr. Thompson. "Karen has gone too far this time. posted the Johnson family. But the comments weren't just about this incident. People started sharing their own stories about Karen's bullying behavior. I had no idea how many people she had terrorized. Mrs. Rodriguez wrote about how Karen fined her family $500 for having a pink flamingo in their yard. The Williams family shared how Karen called the police on their teenager for having friends over. Mr. Chin told everyone about how Karen tried to have his car towed because it was parked 6 inches over the line. The stories kept coming. Karen had been making life miserable for everyone in the neighborhood for years. My video was just the final straw. The next day Karen showed up at my front door. But she wasn't there to apologize. She was there to demand that I take down the video. "You're ruining my reputation," she shouted through the door. "Take that video down right now." I opened the door but kept the chain lock on. "Your reputation?" I said. "You hit my daughter with a baseball bat." "It was an accident." Karen lied. "I was just trying to teach her about rules." "Get off my property," I said and closed the door. Karen kept pounding on the door and shouting, "I'll sue you. I'll have you thrown out of this neighborhood." I called the police again. This time they came quickly because Karen was disturbing the peace. They told her to leave and warned her about harassment. But Karen's visit told me something important. She wasn't sorry about what she did to Lily. She was only worried about her image and her power. That's when I knew this fight was about more than just my daughter. It was about stopping Karen once and for all. I decided to reach out to other neighbors who had problems with Karen. I started with Mrs. Carter, who had always been kind to Lily. She was happy to help. "I've been waiting for someone to stand up to Karen," she said. "She's been a bully for too long." We called ourselves the Maple Grove Alliance. At first it was just 5 or 6 people. But as word spread about our group, more neighbors joined. Within a week we had over 30 members. Everyone had a story about Karen's abuse of power. Mr. Peterson showed us a stack of unfair fines he had received. The Martinez family had been threatened with eviction over a cracked driveway. Single mother Jennifer Walsh had been fined repeatedly for late payments, even though she was struggling financially. But we didn't just complain. We decided to do something about it. Mrs. Carter, who used to be a lawyer, suggested we look into the HOA rules and Karen's authority. What we found was shocking. We spent hours going through the HOA bylaws and rules. What we discovered was that Karen had been abusing her power for years. She had been imposing fines that weren't allowed in the official rules. She had been threatening people with actions she had no authority to take. But that wasn't the worst part. Mr. Chin, who was an accountant, offered to look at the HOA's financial records. What he found was even more disturbing. Karen had been stealing money from the HOA fund. She had been using association money for her own personal expenses. There were receipts for expensive patio furniture, a new grill, and even a vacation to Hawaii, all paid for with money that belonged to the neighborhood. We had evidence that Karen was not only a bully but also a thief. The more we investigated, the more crimes we found. Karen had been falsifying documents, threatening people illegally, and embezzling funds. She had been running our HOA like her own personal kingdom. We documented everything carefully. We made copies of all the evidence and prepared a detailed report of Karen's illegal activities. While we were investigating Karen's crimes, we also started a petition to remove her as HOA president. We went door to door, talking to every family in the neighborhood. The response was overwhelming. People were eager to sign the petition. Many of them had been suffering in silence, afraid to speak up against Karen. Mrs. Johnson signed immediately. "She fined me for having the wrong color roses," she said. "I've been too scared to plant anything in my yard since then." The teenage boy from the Williams family wanted to sign too. "She called the cops on me for riding my skateboard," he said. "I wasn't doing anything wrong." Even some people who had supported Karen in the past changed their minds after seeing the video. They realized that hitting a child was going too far. Within 1 week, we had signatures from over 80% of the neighborhood. It was clear that people were fed up with Karen's tyranny. The next HOA meeting was scheduled for the following Thursday. We knew this would be our chance to present our evidence and demand Karen's removal. The meeting was held in the community center, which was usually only half full. But that night the room was packed. People who had never attended an HOA meeting before were there to support us. Karen walked in looking confident, as if nothing had happened. She took her usual seat at the front and called the meeting to order. "Before we begin the regular business," Mrs. Carter stood up and said, "we have some important matters to discuss regarding the conduct of our HOA president." Karen's face went pale. "That's not on the agenda," she said. "Emergency motions don't need to be on the agenda," Mrs. Carter replied. She knew the rules better than Karen did. I stood up and played the video on a large screen that we had set up. The room was completely silent as everyone watched Karen attack my daughter. You could hear gasps and angry murmurs from the crowd. When the video ended, people started speaking up. One by one, they shared their own stories about Karen's bullying. Mr. Peterson spoke first. Karen fined me $200 for having a small oil stain on my driveway. When I tried to explain that it was from my old truck, she threatened to have me evicted. Mrs. Rodriguez was next. She made my family remove decorations from our yard because she said they weren't appropriate. They were just colorful flowers that reminded us of our homeland. The testimonies continued for over an hour. Parent after parent stood up to talk about how Karen had made their children afraid to play outside. Business owners talked about how her strict rules had driven customers away from the neighborhood. But the most powerful testimony came from 8-year-old Tommy Williams. His mother helped him stand on a chair so everyone could see him. Miss Karen yelled at me for drawing with chalk, he said in his small voice. She said I was vandalizing. I was just drawing flowers for my mom. The room was completely silent. Seeing this brave little boy speak up about his experience made everyone realize how much damage Karen had done. Then Mr. Chin presented his findings about the HOA finances. He had charts and documents that showed exactly how Karen had been stealing money. Over the past 3 years, Karen has embezzled over $15,000 from our HOA fund, he announced. She used our money to buy personal items and even took a vacation to Hawaii. The crowd was shocked. People started shouting angrily. They had been paying HOA fees to improve the neighborhood, but Karen had been using their money for herself. Karen tried to defend herself. Those were necessary expenses for HOA business, she claimed. Really? Mr. Chin replied. How is a hot tub a necessary expense for the HOA? Karen's face turned red. She couldn't answer the question because she had been caught red-handed. Mrs. Carter called for a vote to remove Karen as HOA president. The vote was almost unanimous. 47 people voted to remove her, and only 2 people voted to keep her. Even some of Karen's former supporters had turned against her. Karen was furious. This is illegal, she shouted. You can't do this to me. Actually, we can, Mrs. Carter replied calmly. It's all in the bylaws that you claim to know so well. Karen gathered her papers and stormed out of the meeting, but not before turning around and pointing at me. This isn't over, she yelled. I'll make you pay for this. The room erupted in applause after she left. People were hugging each other and celebrating. We had done it, we had removed the neighborhood tyrant. The next step was to elect a new HOA president. Mrs. Carter was nominated and elected unanimously. She was a retired teacher who loved children and had always been kind to everyone in the neighborhood. Mrs. Carter's first act as president was to review all of Karen's fines and rules. She canceled the unfair penalties and returned money to families who had been wrongfully charged. She also changed the rules to focus on community building instead of strict enforcement. She organized neighborhood block parties and created a playground fund for the local park. Our neighborhood should be a place where families feel safe and happy, she said. Not a place where people are afraid to step outside. The change was immediate and dramatic. Children started playing outside again. People began talking to each other instead of avoiding eye contact. The neighborhood felt alive for the first time in years. Meanwhile, the police investigation had finally moved forward. The public pressure from the video and the evidence of embezzlement had forced them to take action. Karen was charged with assault on a minor and embezzlement. Her trial was scheduled for 6 weeks later. I was nervous about testifying in court, but I knew it was important. Lily would have to be there too, and I was worried about how she would handle it. The day of the trial, the courtroom was packed with our neighbors. Everyone wanted to see justice done. When it was my turn to testify, I told the judge exactly what happened. I played the video again, and you could see the shock on the judge's face when Karen hit Lily. Your Honor, I said, my daughter was just playing. She wasn't hurting anyone. Karen attacked her for no reason other than her own need for control. The hardest part was when Lily had to testify. She was so small that she needed a special chair to reach the microphone. I held her hand the whole time. Tell the judge what happened that day, the prosecutor said gently. Lily's voice was quiet but clear. I was riding my tricycle and having fun. The mean lady yelled at me and said I was bad. Then she hit me with the bat and it hurt really bad. Are you afraid of the mean lady? The prosecutor asked. Yes, Lily whispered. I don't want her to hurt me again. The judge's face was stern as she listened to my daughter's testimony. Karen's lawyer tried to make it seem like the incident was just a misunderstanding, but the video didn't lie. The trial lasted 3 days. On the final day, the judge delivered her verdict. "Ms. Mitchell," the judge said, looking directly at Karen, "your actions were completely unacceptable. You were in a position of trust in your community, and you abused that trust in the worst possible way. Attacking a child is inexcusable, regardless of your claimed justification." Karen was found guilty of assault and embezzlement. She was sentenced to 6 months in jail, 2 years of probation, and ordered to pay back all the money she had stolen. The judge also issued a restraining order preventing Karen from coming within 500 feet of our house or having any contact with Lily. "I hope this sentence sends a message," the judge said. "Adults who harm children will face the full consequences of their actions." But the legal victory was just the beginning of Karen's downfall. The neighborhood had their own form of justice planned. News of the trial spread quickly through social media. The video of Karen hitting Lily had gone viral, and people across the country were outraged. Karen's face was everywhere, and she became known as the HOA bully. Her employer, a local real estate company, fired her immediately. No one wanted to be associated with someone who attacked children. Her professional reputation was ruined. Local newspapers picked up the story, and Karen's picture was on the front page with headlines like "HOA President Attacks Child" and "Neighborhood Tyrant Gets Justice." Karen couldn't go anywhere without being recognized. People would point at her and whisper. Some even confronted her directly about what she had done. 3 months after the trial, we discovered something that made Karen's crimes even worse. Mrs. Carter was going through old HOA records when she found something shocking. Karen had been planning to sell the neighborhood park to a developer. She had been secretly negotiating to turn our children's playground into a shopping center. The contracts were already drawn up, and Karen would have received a $50,000 commission. This explained why she had been so aggressive about keeping children away from the park and sidewalks. She wanted to make the neighborhood less family-friendly so people wouldn't object to losing the park. "She wasn't just a bully," Mrs. Carter announced at the next HOA meeting. "She was trying to destroy our community for her own profit." The revelation made everyone even angrier. Karen hadn't just been stealing money, she had been planning to steal the heart of our neighborhood. Karen tried to fight back against the community's rejection. She hired a lawyer and tried to sue me for defamation, claiming that the video had ruined her life. But her lawsuit was thrown out of court. The judge ruled that posting a video of someone's criminal behavior was not defamation, it was evidence of the truth. Karen then tried to move back into the neighborhood after her jail sentence. She rented a house 3 blocks away and started walking around again trying to intimidate people. But the neighborhood was ready for her. We had security cameras installed throughout the area, and we had a phone tree to alert everyone if Karen was causing trouble. When Karen tried to approach the playground where children were playing, parents immediately surrounded her and told her to leave. She was no longer welcome in our community. Unable to find work or acceptance in our town, Karen eventually gave up and moved away. We heard she tried to start over in a city 2 hours away, but the internet never forgets. Her story followed her wherever she went. The house where she used to live was bought by a young family with twin boys. They turned her former perfect yard into a playground with swings and a sandbox. Children's laughter now filled the space where Karen used to patrol with her clipboard. The new family asked Mrs. Carter about the neighborhood's history. When they heard about Karen, they said they were proud to be part of a community that stood up for children. The hardest part of this whole experience was helping Lily heal from the trauma. 4 weeks after the attack, she was afraid to go outside. She would have nightmares about the mean lady coming back to hurt her. I took her to a child psychologist who specialized in trauma. Dr. Martinez was wonderful with Lily and helped her understand that what happened wasn't her fault. "Bad things sometimes happen to good people," Dr. Martinez explained to Lily. "But you have lots of people who love you and want to keep you safe." Gradually, Lily started playing outside again. At first, she would only stay in our backyard. Then she started riding her tricycle in short trips up and down the sidewalk. Eventually, she was back to her old happy self. 6 months after Karen's trial, Mrs. Carter organized a neighborhood celebration. We called it the Freedom Festival, a celebration of our freedom from Karen's tyranny. The whole neighborhood came together in the park. There were games for children, a barbecue, and live music. Local businesses donated food and prizes. The mayor even came to speak about the importance of community. During the celebration, Mrs. Carter gave a speech about how we had all worked together to make our neighborhood a better place. "One person tried to rule us through fear," she said. "But we showed that a community united is stronger than any bully." Lily was the guest of honor at the festival. She cut the ribbon for the new playground equipment that we had bought with the money Karen had stolen. Seeing her smile and laugh with the other children made all our efforts worthwhile. The fight against Karen changed our neighborhood permanently. We learned that we were stronger when we worked together. We also learned that we couldn't let bullies go unchallenged. Mrs. Carter established new rules for the HOA that prevented any one person from having too much power. Every major decision now required a vote from the community. Financial records were reviewed monthly by a committee of volunteers. We also started a neighborhood watch program, not just for crime but for bullying and harassment. If anyone felt threatened or intimidated, they could call for help and support. The children in our neighborhood grew up with a different understanding of justice. They learned that adults could be wrong, and that sometimes you have to stand up to wrong behavior even when it's scary. Our story spread beyond our neighborhood. Other communities that were dealing with HOA bullies reached out to us for advice. We shared our strategies and evidence-gathering techniques. A local law school even used our case as an example in their classes about community organizing and citizens' rights. Students wrote papers about how ordinary people can fight back against abuse of power. I started speaking at community meetings in other neighborhoods. I would tell our story and show how people could work together to solve problems. One person can start a movement, I would tell audiences. But it takes a whole community to create lasting change. Ironically, Karen's attack on Lily ended up making our neighborhood stronger than ever. Her attempt to control us through fear brought us together and taught us the value of standing up for what's right. The playground where Lily was attacked became a symbol of our community's resilience. Children play there every day and their parents watch with pride, knowing that they fought to protect their children's right to be kids. We installed a small plaque near the playground that reads, "In memory of all the children who deserve to play without fear." It doesn't mention Karen by name, but everyone knows what it means. 2 years after the incident, I received a letter from Karen. She had found our address somehow and wanted to make contact. In the letter, she claimed that she had learned from her mistakes and wanted to apologize. She said she had been going through a difficult time and had taken out her frustrations on the neighborhood. But I noticed something about the letter. It wasn't really an apology, it was an excuse. Karen still didn't take full responsibility for what she had done. She still blamed her behavior on other factors. I showed the letter to Mrs. Carter and the other Alliance members. We all agreed that Karen still didn't understand the real impact of her actions. I wrote back to Karen with a simple message: a real apology would include accepting full responsibility and making amends. Until you can do that, we have nothing to discuss. I never heard from her again. Today, Lily is 7 years old and thriving. She still rides her tricycle, though she's almost too big for it now. She's learning to ride a two-wheel bike, and the whole neighborhood cheers her on. She sometimes asks me about the mean lady who hurt her. I tell her that some people make bad choices, but that doesn't mean we should be afraid. I tell her that we stood up to the mean lady and won. Our neighborhood is now known as one of the friendliest communities in the city. Property values have gone up because families want to live here. Children play safely in the streets, and parents don't have to worry about bullies. Mrs. Carter is still our HOA president, and she's running unopposed for her 3rd term. She's turned our community into a model for other neighborhoods. Sometimes I watch Lily playing with her friends and think about how different things could have been. If we hadn't stood up to Karen, she might still be terrorizing families. Other children might have been hurt. But we didn't stay silent. We fought back. We gathered evidence, built alliances, and demanded justice. We showed that ordinary people can defeat bullies when they work together. The best part is that Lily learned something important from this experience. She learned that when someone tries to hurt you or treat you unfairly, you don't have to suffer in silence. You can fight back and you can win. That's the real victory, not just removing Karen from power, but teaching our children that they have the power to stand up for themselves and others. As I finish writing this story, I can hear Lily outside laughing with her friends. The sound of children playing freely is the sweetest revenge of all. We gave our kids their childhood back, and that's worth more than any punishment Karen could ever face. The battle against the neighborhood tyrant is over, but the lessons we learned will last forever. We learned that communities are stronger than bullies, that justice is possible when people work together, and that protecting children is worth any fight. That's our story, a story of how one mother's love for her child became a neighborhood's fight for justice. And in the end, love won.